Every year, something strange happens. The calendar changes, the numbers flip, and people feel a quiet surge of hope. This year will be different. Things will finally change. I'll get it together this time. But beneath that hope is an uncomfortable truth most people don't want to face. Time doesn't change lives. People do. And yet, year after year, millions of people enter a new year carrying the exact same identity that shaped the old one. The same patterns, the same reactions, the same habits, the same expectations. They change the date, but keep the same internal operating system. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Here's the truth that feels harsh at first, but becomes freeing once you understand it. 2026 will not change your life unless you show up as someone different inside it. New years don't create new outcomes. New intentions don't create new outcomes. Even new goals don't create new outcomes. Outcomes are created by identity. The version of you that wakes up on January 1st is the same version that will carry you through the year unless something deeper shifts. And most people never address that. They focus on behavior. They focus on discipline. They focus on motivation. But behavior is downstream. Motivation is temporary. And discipline collapses when identity stays the same. This is why resolutions fade, why January energy disappears, why progress feels exciting for a moment and then quietly dissolves. Because the future doesn't respond to what you hope will happen. It responds to who you are when no one is watching. And if that version of you hasn't changed, 2026 won't either. Not because you failed, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because nothing new was introduced at the level that actually creates change. What comes next is understanding the one mistake almost everyone makes at the start of a new year, and why fixing it changes everything. The mistake most people make at the start of a new year is believing change begins with intention. They decide what they want. They list goals. They imagine a better version of life. And for a moment, that intention feels powerful. But intention alone doesn't override identity, because your identity is not what you want to be. It's what you return to under pressure. It's the version of you that shows up when motivation fades, when life gets busy, when stress appears, when no one is cheering you on. And that version of you was built long before 2026 was even a thought. Built from repetition, from emotional experiences, from what felt safe, from what felt familiar. That's why change feels hardest after the excitement wears off. Not because you stopped caring, but because your nervous system pulled you back to what it knows. Here's the part most people miss. Your identity doesn't resist change because it's bad. It resists change because it's unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels risky to a system designed to protect you. So when you say, "This year I'll be consistent," but your identity is used to stopping, resistance shows up. When you say, "This year I'll speak up," but your identity learned to stay quiet, hesitation appears. When you say, "This year I'll go all in," but your identity learned to play it safe, delay feels logical. This is why years don't change people. People try to add new behaviors on top of the same internal foundation. But a new year built on the same identity will always produce familiar results. The shift begins when you stop asking, "What do I want this year?" and start asking something deeper. Who must I stop being for this year to actually change? That question moves change out of hope and into authorship. Because once identity is addressed, time becomes an ally instead of a distraction. What comes next is the realization that you don't need to become someone new. You need to release the version of you that no longer fits the future you're stepping into. There is a moment of honesty that changes how you approach a new year forever. It's the moment you realize that the life you're living now was not created by accident. It was shaped by choices you made automatically. Choices about what to tolerate. Choices about what to avoid. Choices about how much to expect. Choices about when to try and when to retreat. Those choices weren't conscious. They were driven by identity. And identity doesn't respond to calendars. It responds to permission. Permission to let go of the version of you that was built for survival, not expansion. This is the deep shift. You don't change your life by adding more effort. You change it by releasing outdated rules. Rules like don't risk too much, don't disappoint people, don't expect it to last, don't get your hopes up. Those rules once protected you. They helped you cope. They made sense in an earlier chapter, but they don't belong in 2026. And yet, most people carry them forward without ever questioning them. They step into a new year with old limits still running the system. That's why nothing feels different. The shift happens when you consciously decide which rules you are no longer obeying. Not angrily, not dramatically, but deliberately. You recognize that the version of you who needed those rules did the best they could, and you thank them. Then you let them go, because the future doesn't require the same defenses the past did. And the moment you release an old rule, space opens. Space for new choices. Space for new behavior. Space for a new way of showing up. This is where real change begins. Not with ambition, not with motivation, but with identity-level permission. What comes next is how to turn that permission into something real, something your subconscious can trust and follow consistently throughout the year. Releasing an old identity doesn't require a dramatic decision or a total reinvention. It requires something far more practical. You begin acting from the future before the future arrives, not in big ways, in quiet, repeatable moments. Because your subconscious doesn't believe declarations, it believes patterns. So instead of saying, "This year I'll be different," you show it once, then again, then again. The micro shift looks like this. When the old version of you would hesitate, you pause and take one grounded step forward. When the old version of you would overthink, you choose clarity over comfort. When the old version of you would abandon yourself, you stay present, even briefly. These moments feel small, but they're powerful, because each one sends a signal. This is safe now. This is allowed now. This is who we are becoming. And your subconscious listens. It begins to update expectations. It loosens old rules. It stops pulling you back to what's familiar, not because you forced it, but because you proved something new was survivable. This is how identity changes in real life, not through willpower, through consistent evidence. You don't need to overhaul your life in January. You need to introduce your system to a new normal and let repetition do the work. And once that happens, time starts working with you. The days no longer erase progress. The weeks don't undo intention. The year begins to compound change instead of resetting it. What comes next is the final realization, the truth about why some people look back at a year transformed while others feel like nothing changed at all. There is a moment, usually quiet, often overlooked, when a year actually changes. It's not when the calendar flips. It's not when goals are written. It's not when motivation peaks. It's when you respond differently to a familiar moment, when you don't retreat, when you don't abandon yourself, when you don't default to the old rule. That's the moment the year begins to change. Because 2026 is not waiting for a better plan. It's responding to who you become consistent as. If you bring the same identity into a new year, you'll get familiar results, no matter how strong your intentions are. But if you bring a new relationship to discomfort, to uncertainty, to effort, to yourself, everything shifts. You stop relying on motivation. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop waiting for confidence to appear. You move differently. And because you move differently, life responds differently. This is why some people look back on a year and barely recognize themselves, while others feel like nothing changed at all. The difference was never time, it was identity. And identity doesn't change all at once. It changes the moment you choose alignment over familiarity. So as 2026 unfolds, remember this: the year will not rescue you. The calendar will not save you. The future will not arrive fully formed. It will meet you exactly as you show up. And the moment you decide to stop carrying forward what no longer fits, the year begins responding in ways it never has before. Not because 2026 is special, but because you are no longer the same.